Hello everybody, and welcome back to World of Warships with Wadres, and for today's video I'm going to be doing something that I have not done in a fair chunk of time, which is actually a ship review. And today we are going to be looking at the Tier 10 Premium U.S. aircraft carrier, the Franklin Delano Roosevelt. And let me say right off the bat that this is a ship that is going to have some relatively mixed opinions, I'm sure. Now, of course, UCV haters out there are just going to hate this ship entirely, and, well, after playing it a little bit and seeing some other community contributor reviews, I can understand why. She is a relatively powerful ship at Tier 10, and under the right circumstances, she can be very, very devastating to anybody she goes and attacks. That being said, let's start off with her overall scheme. She is a standard aircraft carrier. She's got relatively thin plating in a lot of areas, but being a Tier 10 aircraft carrier, US, she does have a nice thick armored deck, so any shells at long range that hit above any of the auxiliary rooms or whatever is going to ricochet, and because she is 19 millimeters, she's probably going to see a lot of overpens at closer ranges, even if she is a nice thick ship. She does have a relatively thick armor belt, so she is susceptible to citadels. And, I mean, she does have relatively standard protection in most regards. Otherwise, just peeling back the layers, I mean, you can see how some of it breaks down. But she does have a relatively decent citadel also. I mean, any shells coming in through side armor are going to stand a good chance of ricocheting off of there and just doing penetration damage instead of actually penetrating into the citadel. So, I mean, she's got some good armor on her, but she does also still have some of the standard CV weaknesses. So definitely don't want to get her too close to the combat. As far as her survivability, she has 67,600 hit points and does have a 25% reduction to torpedo protection. So, I mean, she does at least mitigate some torpedo damage relatively well. Or should, unless, of course, you have a commander who takes into account some of the newer skills. For example, the proximity fuse, which ignores 10% of torpedo protection. And being a carrier, she does not really get access to anything that buffs her torpedo protection either. So there is that to be said there. Let's see, looking at her aircraft, and this is one of her standout features. In fact, being an aircraft carrier, this is basically her standout feature. She has very high survivability aircraft. These are TB2D Sky Pirates on all slots, so and there are some minor variations in hit points overall, but other than that, there really aren't that many differences. The attack planes, she, however, and this is probably her one of her two big Achilles heels. Her aircraft are slow as hell. So, yeah, you've got that for starters. So it takes them pretty long time to get damn near anywhere. The engine boosts are pretty much standard, I believe, for all aircraft at the tier. The attack flights, however, are only 2 in an attack, but you have 14 aircraft in a flight squadron. So your squadrons are huge, they are heavily survivable, but they are slow moving. Now, the other thing that makes up the difference is that these aircraft carry lots of armament. The rocket attack aircraft carry 26 rockets, each of which have a maximum potential damage of 1,650 damage. They penetrate 32 millimeters of armor, which means no battleship is safe from penetration here. They have a 5% chance of causing fires. And you get 23 of these aircraft on deck, and they do have a outstandingly long restoration time, and that's the other downside here, of 103 seconds. So it takes forever to try and restore any of these aircraft. That is the trade-off of having very survivable aircraft. They take longer to restore, they are slow as hell, and that is what balances that out. Torpedo bombers, you're looking at basically the same. They have almost 4,000 hit points with the right build. I'm working with, I suppose I should get into that, working with Air Groups Modification 1, Aircraft Engines Mod 1, Aerial Torpedoes Mod 1, Torpedo Bombers Mod 2, Flight Control Mod 1, and Flight Control Mod 2. So I have a 5% increase of squadron speed there. Here's a 5% reduction to restoration time plus 2 deck spaces. Torpedo bomber health, torpedo speed, which is marginally important, engine boost duration, and speed of aircraft returning. Now, let's get back to here, the torpedo bombers. They are relatively slow, again, 128 knots cruise speed, 166 knots max speed. That is slower than any other aircraft at tier, I believe. They do have a 23-second engine boost, but it takes 40 seconds to replenish that. The attack flight is same as the attack aircraft, and the squadron size is the same as the attack aircraft, so 2 per attack and 14 per squadron. However, the torpedo payload does not suffer for this at all, because these aircraft carry 4 torpedoes each. So if you're doing the math right, because I know several of you are out there, that is 8 torpedoes for a single attack run. The Midway, which I believe is the largest attack run in-game, drops 6 torpedoes. So you've already got a dramatic increase in attack power just from the payload, let alone the number of aircraft that could potentially attack and keep coming back around. But we'll get into that one also in just a minute. The torpedo damage, however, is a little bit lackluster at 4,233. I believe that's actually less than the Midway. But, I mean, you've got 8 torpedoes, so you're balancing that out with volume more so than anything else. The Audacious does even more damage than that. And, well, we won't even discuss Japanese torpedoes. The only thing that does approximate damage, in fact, geez, am I seeing that right? Yeah, even the Manfred von Richthofen's torpedoes do more damage. But the Manfred von Richthofen does not put out 8 torpedoes in a single attack run. So, yeah. Just throwing that out there. The torpedoes do have a 37 knot speed, so you do need a good bit of lead on any target that you drop on. But as a bit of a trade-off on that, the torpedoes do have a relatively short arming distance of only 489 meters. So you basically really just kind of end up giving ships about their own length in lead, and that's really not bad, all things considered. Of course, standard detectability of the aircraft is 10 kilometers. You get 23 torpedo bombers on the deck, and they restore in 127 seconds. As for the bombers, you have 3,710 hit points per aircraft. They move same speed as the torpedo bombers, so 128 and 166, standard engine boosts, attack, flight, and squadron size are the same, so 2 and 14. You get 4 bombs in the payload per aircraft, but these do a maximum damage of 11,200 points worth of damage, which I don't even think the Midway boasts. Well, okay, that is the same bombs as the Midway. Not even sure I should discuss Audacious there. But they do more maximum damage than the bombers on the Hakuryu, though Hakuryu does Citadel damage, potentially. And, of course, the MVR only does 8,800 damage. And, of course, FDR is also high explosive damage. It's not AP damage, so there is the chance that all of that damage could easily be replaced. However, one of the things that is a huge notice here is look at the amount of the potential for causing fire. 64%. Coming back to the Midway, okay, 64 there. Hakuryu we're not even talking about. It's only 36% on the Audacious, and Richthofen is AP bombs. So, I mean, she's on par as far as setting fires with the Midway, but the Midway also has fewer bombs to drop. I mean, she gets, 6 aircraft in an attack, so that's 12 bombs versus FDR dropping 4, so that's actually only 8 bombs in an attack run. But, I mean, if you time it right, if you play everything right, these bombs will hit hard and they will do a hell of a lot of damage. And of course, there are some skills that you can use to improve your fire chances. You can't really improve the HE bomb damage anywhere that I see. Probably a good thing, actually. But there are some other skills that I will probably discuss in a separate commander-oriented video a little bit later. So these torpedo bombers, these dive bombers, actually no, I take it back. These are level bombers. They are not dive bombers. So these attack in roughly the same fashion as the Audacious bombers, where they just fly straight, drop the bombs, and get the hell out of Dodge. You get 23 of these aircraft on deck, and they restore in 118 seconds. She does have 14 secondary battery guns. They are single 5-inch guns, or 127mm guns. They have a 4-second reload, maximum damage of 1,800, 9% chance of fire. I mean, these are basically standard destroyer guns here for Tier 10, and they're not bad. They're basically the same as you have on the Midway here. And, I mean, they'll probably do the job if anything gets close enough, but definitely not, say, German secondary battery grade. She does have pretty good AA defenses. In fact, looking at her, she's only second... I take that back. She's only second to the Midway for her AA defenses. Or third after the MVR. But the MVR is like absolute flying fortress, or floating fortress. We're not really... She's literally in a class of her own, I think. But Midway, I mean, 1591, FDR, 525... And I do think I have some AA specializations. No, I don't on the Midway. But anyway, she's no slouch when it comes to defending herself either. And of course, she does have those fighters that she can put up in the air. And, well, as everybody knows, aircraft carriers are friggin' no-fly zones. You really only get off one attack before you lose all of your planes. So there you have that. As far as her mobility, she does move at a relatively respectable 33 knots, but she has an astounding 1,230-meter turning circle. Same as the Midway, not as bad as the Hakuryu by only about 20 meters. but the Audacious and the MVR still outstrip her ever so slightly. And her rudder shifts in a majorly long 17.3 seconds. So don't expect her to be doing a slalom. As far as concealment, she is seen at 15.4 kilometers, detectability at 12.4, and of course standard assured detectability range at 2 kilometers, but if you've got a CV hiding in smoke, it's probably too close to the action anyway. Now you can drop her detectability down a good bit using the new Hidden Menace skill, which drops her detectability to 13.1 kilometers on the surface, 12.6 kilometers from the air, and of course you could probably outfit her with a concealment module as well, dropping that down even further, but there's a part of me that really has to wonder why. Why would you do that when you have so much else that will help your aircraft, especially considering how slow these aircraft are? You definitely want that aircraft speed, and you definitely want that aircraft servicing time over concealment, because these aircraft are painfully slow to replenish. Now, to get into the skills that I am using, I'm using basically all aircraft bonuses. I've got improved engine boost to get at least that boost lasting a little bit longer. I've got air supremacy to further reduce the aircraft restoration time. I have improved engines because squadron speed. You want to get every ounce of speed out of these planes as you can. Trust me on that. This is kind of like Bill trying to work with the Ark Royal. You end up wanting to try and get more speed out of these aircraft. You want to get as much speed out of these aircraft as you can, so you will drop every speed mod possible into those aircraft. Let's see, we have aircraft armor, so continuous AA damage reduction. I mean, you've got survivable aircraft, so why not monopolize on that and further reduce the damage that they take? Also, enhanced aircraft armor, which is a 25% reduction to flak explosion damage. Again, survivability. That's your big standout point. You want to enhance that, and you want to bring out your speed. The other skills that I have are proximity fuse, so 10% reduction to anti-torpedo protection of any ship. So say if I'm attacking an Ibuki, her survivability, she only has 16% torpedo damage reduction. That would cut her torpedo damage reduction to 6%. So she would take nearly full damage on anything that hits her torpedo or armor belt. Let's say I'm looking at the Yamato. This is where you see something significant. I mean, 55% dropping to 45%. So you get a substantial amount of damage increase there. Even say the Massachusetts, that would go to 36%. Of course, destroyers have no torpedo damage protection, so they take full damage regardless. But I mean, trying to hit a destroyer with carrier torps, that is like the ultimate exercise in futility there, if I ever saw one. Alaska basically almost completely negates her torpedo protection. So, I mean, it is a fairly relevant skill for these torpedo bombers, especially since you have so many torpedoes. So you stand the chance to really do a lot of damage if you take this one. There are some skills that you could also invoke, like, say, bomber flight control, which is cruise speed of bombers, and I can argue that that might be a better thing than maybe the enhanced aircraft armor. But I will also argue in favor of the enhanced aircraft armor, because, again, these aircraft are slow. They do spend a lot of time in the AA bubbles, and they take a long time to replenish. So if you're especially fighting at tier 10, equal tier, you're going to be hurting if these aircraft are shot down, period, end of story. It is very easy to have this aircraft carrier basically deplaned if you play this aircraft carrier wrong. And it will take forever for her to get any of those aircraft back. Just throwing that out there. So this is one case where aircraft speed might actually be trumped by the enhanced aircraft armor. You could probably go with bomber flight control instead of proximity fuse, but again, you're losing a lot of utility there. My recommendation, especially since this only uses 17 skill points, is actually hang on to any other undistributed skill points that you get for this, for any FDR commander, and build her up to 21. Build the commander up to 21 points. That will give you 4 extra points that you can put into really just about anything, such as Survivability Expert. But Survivability Expert at this point, I think, would actually be a wasted skill because these aircraft are so survivable anyway. You'd only be getting, what, 250 hit points per aircraft, which for these aircraft, that's like a drop in the bucket. So for that one, you might just consider bomber flight control. There is an argument also to be made for sight stabilization because your attack runs, your sights do take a while to narrow down, and you also have the potential for swift fish, which is torpedo speed, but it doesn't help them much. Or you could also go with, say, engine cooling consumable, last gasp for engine boost for last attack flight, or maybe even a couple of A-select defensive fighter or patrol fighter skill or two, but I would argue against those as well. Her secondaries really aren't anything spectacular enough to really invest in. There is the concealment skill that you could go for, but I would have to argue here there is a major downside, 50% reduction to the speed of returning air squadrons. On these aircraft, that would be, you wouldn't get any aircraft back for like the entire match. So yeah, I would argue that one might not be the best choice unless you are closer to the action than you really want to be in this ship. Demolition Expert, of course, you've already got such a high fire chance. I really don't see any reason why you would want that one. So the best skills that I could see for those last few points, again, would be either bomber flight control, sight stabilization, or swift fish, and maybe a select one or two grade skills. And even at that, you're going to take a lot of time to get there. First off, you want to focus on your aircraft speed, survivability, and some assistance to arming distance and damage. So there you have it. That is my setup for the FDR. Let's go on ahead, take her into battle, and you all can see how she performs. Okay, so first battle, and I do have to go out there and state that this was actually done before the commander skill rework, so this is the FDR working with the old skills, meaning torpedo acceleration and a number of the other original captain skills that are no longer relevant. And I mean, personally, if it were me, I really don't, I'll be honest, I really don't see the reasoning behind a lot of the skill changes, but in some ways I do see the fact that there are more skills that are offered for the various classes now that in some ways do make sense, such as skills that benefit destroyers, but okay, that's a completely different story. We're talking about the Franklin Delano Roosevelt here. So I do, I really should not get into an in-depth discussion on that. Starting off, your best attacks are going to be against cruisers, battleships, and late game, most likely even the enemy aircraft carrier if you can get a good lineup on it. But the reason being, one, you have slow torps, so torps trying to drop on destroyers, we've already discussed that. It's not that... It's not really that effective against destroyers, so I wouldn't do that. The rocket attack aircraft, your rockets have to fly so far because you have a relatively flat attack angle. And so you will spend a lot of time really trying to get that right angle on the destroyer when you could easily line up on something so much better, so much easier, like a battleship or a cruiser. And with as many rockets as you have, it's also entirely possible that a good rocket strike will actually be more effective on something that's heavier, like a battleship or cruiser anyway. So just to put that out there so you all have that in mind for those of you who do have enough steel to go ahead and get the FDR. And you can see I've already gotten off a couple of pretty decent attack runs on 2 ships. I mean, I had a nice run on the Vladivostok there. Just got 5 torpedoes on the Thunderer. I mean, I'm doing pretty darn good here so far. Overall, it really just depends on how you focus your attention. I do drop bombs. Unfortunately... Well, yes, I do get the kill on the Edinburgh. This match was a little over a week ago, so I'm a little fuzzy on some of the details on it. I probably should have rewatched it, if I'm being honest. But so far, I'm on 35,000 damage. I'm doing happy. I've got 13 torpedo hits already. I'm feeling pretty darn good. I've also got 2 nice big battleships that I can drop bombs and torpedoes and everything on. I mean, this was a pretty battleship heavy match. And I'm now trying out the the dive bombers, or level bombers I should say. And I'm losing some planes at a relatively steady rate, but it's also because I'm spending lots of time in AA bubbles with clustered heavy AA ships. That's the downside of this aircraft, of this carrier. You spend a lot of time in AA bubbles. You spend a lot of time really doing things that CVs don't normally like to do. Do get a fire on the enemy GK there, and I don't think I'm actually going to get the kill on it. I don't believe I get the kill on it with fire. Yeah, nope. Friendly GK actually takes it out. So do try to line up on the enemy Alsace here. And I actually end up aborting, partly because... Wait, no, I don't abort. But I do lose half of my spread to the island. Do land 2 torpedoes, however, on the Alsace. And now I start looking to line up on the enemy Sovietsky Soyuz because the Alsace is done and gone. If I remember correctly, I do get... yeah, I do get 1 run off, but it's not a great one. No, I don't. Minnesota finishes him off. Or, no. Sorry, Alsace finishes him off. Like I said, I should have probably rewatched this one. So my next bet is to try and go after the enemy CV, because that is literally the only thing left. And it is a good bit of the way across the map, so it's gonna take me some time to get there. That is probably the single biggest thing that one of the 2 biggest things that I hate about this aircraft carrier. The aircraft are slow. They take forever to get anywhere for a Tier 10 aircraft carrier. So that's one thing to have in mind. Second thing that I hate, and I'm sure you've already noticed it on the right side of my reticle, is that it has a long attack refresh timer. And I do finish off the enemy aircraft carrier. I didn't think I did that. I forgot I did that. But anyway, 20 torpedo hits for the match, 2 ship kills, 12 bomb hits for a respectable, considering the length of the match, 85,000 damage. Middle of the team, 384 base EXP. Not bad. Not terrible, but not bad. Our Alsace definitely did the lion's share of the work there, though. GK didn't do bad himself either. But anyway, coming back to what I was saying about the attack timer, though, you have absolutely egregious 25 seconds after any attack run before you can perform another attack. So you have to sit there tooling around with your planes for almost half a minute before you finally get a decent attack run, or before you actually get the clearance to do another attack run, which means you also have to make sure that you're far enough out where when you are ready to do that other attack run that you actually have the distance to do it. And you're not going to sit around for 25 seconds in a enemy ship's AA bubble trying to wait for this timer to reset. So you're spending that time getting out of the AA bubble. And again, you still have time where you have to sit tooling around waiting for that to reload. So you do have an extensive amount of downtime with this carrier, not just between getting to and from target, but also trying to complete or commit to successive attacks. So yeah, those are 2 huge downsides here. And of course, there is the extremely long refresh or restoration period on your aircraft. So just be wary that if you're interested in the FDR, you're going to potentially lose planes, especially if you're against something that drops, say, an attack fighter. You will lose planes to that. Hands down, you will lose planes because you cannot get away from those fighters. End of story. They will chase you down and they will catch you. You will not get away from them and you will lose planes. Boom, done, end of story. And it's going to take you forever to get those planes back. So, yeah. Just be very, very careful about that aspect of the FDR. It is very easy to deplane her if you play her wrong. Now, realize I'm also saying that in the current world of Warships CV environment where you really don't... I mean, it's impossible for an aircraft carrier to literally run out of planes because it will replenish them over time. But if you're really not careful at all, it is extremely easy to get this aircraft carrier down to the point where you might have one attack run out of a squadron of 14 even just available to fly because they take that long to resupply. So just be careful, play your cards right, and try to prevent as many losses as you can. Now, the second match, you're going to see something that I've only ever had once before in a CV. I'm going to be the sole survivor of a match, trying to fight off, admittedly, not bad odds, only 2 ships, the enemy CV and a enemy Montana, which is going to be showing up in relatively short order here. But it's still something that has not happened to me very often. because usually I have decent teams that will carry the matches and finish everything off, especially lately. I mean, it's almost impossible to get a co-op match these days that doesn't have like a 50 to 60% player rate. So having that kind of spread is really, really unique, honestly. To have a very low populace. And by the way, you'll notice I'm still learning about that 25 seconds. That 25 seconds cost me severely right there. Because I was trying to slow my attack aircraft down so that I could actually be able to potentially perform an attack from the torpedo bombers, and that lost me that entire squadron after that initial run on the Henry. So I'm starting this match at I'll say a relatively severe disadvantage already, because I've lost an entire attack run or an entire attack squadron, for lack of a better term. Now I do start off trying to get an attack on this Colbert, and I do actually pull it off to some degree, but definitely could have been a better run. But I definitely look at my options and say, you know what, I've got better chances of going after this Goliath than I do trying to re-attack this Colbert. But I have to wait out a 20-second reload. Now, Colbert isn't exactly a slouch on its AA, but it's better than trying to, say, go after Goliath in its AA, or get away from its AA. But the Colbert is a fast destroyer. It was actually doing a relatively decent job of chasing down my attack planes. So, I did take a good bit of AA damage from that Colbert. I mean, we'll be honest here. I probably spent a little bit too long trying to run in the wrong direction from it. But I did, and granted I didn't lose much, but I ultimately just decided to do away with the attack planes and go back to torpedo bombers on some of the battleships that are sitting out in the open. Like this Burgoyne here, which is perfectly out in the open. I have nothing interfering. So I'm watching it, I'm watching its turn, and I figure, you know what, I got nothing to lose. It's probably going to continue its turn, so I'm just going to drop here and let it turn into the torps. And I was actually expecting it to not continue turning into the torps, but it does. So I'm actually going to get a decent number of torp hits off of that Burgoyne. 5 torpedo hits is nothing to sneeze at, but I got 7 out of 8 on that Burgoyne in a single run. And again, just thoroughly botched the run on this Montana, and I don't think any of those torpedoes actually connect with it. So, yeah. Again, that 25-second re-engagement timer hurts. I mean, it really hurts when you're trying to carry off successive attacks on targets that are closely spaced like that. So be wary, again, when attacking targets that are closely spaced, because you're not going to be able to get successive attacks off. It's not like, granted, I don't even think you can do that with any of the other series anymore either, but you can get successive attacks off in relatively rapid succession. So there is that to be said as well. Now here I see that the Burgoyne was, I believe it was burning, but I wanted to secure that kill. I did not need it coming back after me and healing up or anything if it put that fire out. So yeah, that was literally self-preservation, because it's at this point just me and the friendly Salem. Now I will say that the Salem does have some things going for it. He does decide to try and to try and help going after this Montana. But you're also going to see me at one point say, you know what, go after the CV. Go worry about the CV, I'll worry about the Montana. I have the firepower to take out the Montana. I have no doubts about that. It's just going to take me time to do it. I would rather have him get eyes on the CV and deal with the enemy CV than risk himself trying to take on a, basically, well, okay, at this point, 9/10 health, tier 10 battleship. Especially since he's also trying to duck and weave and dodge the enemy midway as it is. He doesn't need to be trying to dodge a Montana as well. And I'm just trying to focus on doing as much damage to the Montana as I can because, again, the Montana is the single greatest threat to the Salem. And I forget at what point, I know it's relatively soon here, where I see the Salem starting to make an effort to go after Montana, turn towards it, where I actually do pop up in chat and I tell him to go after the CV. Because, again, that is probably the single most valuable thing he could do at this point. Now, the problem is he is starting to go after the Montana, and it does save him a little bit. It gives him a little bit of a reprieve, because the Montana has him behind an island. He's not spotting it, I'm not spotting, or he's not seeing it, so yeah. See, there I am in chat right there. I'm telling him to go after the CV, not to worry about Montana, that I'm going to go for it. To his credit, he listens. He does break off, keep the island between him and the Montana to go after the CV. At least initially. And this is where I do have to complain about it a little bit. Because he does break off initially, he does make the right choice to keep the island between him and the Montana, to keep that line of sight out of there. But he opts to do it by going between the two big islands right near B, instead of keeping islands between him and just running straight north. He decides to break out with the Montana in full view of him at relatively short range, if we're being honest, especially considering a Montana. And that's not going to do him any favors at all. It actually is going to, it will be his end. He is going to die at the hands of the Montana, leaving me ultimately as the last survivor of this match against a Montana and a Midway. Now, of those, to me, again, CVs are basically no-fly zones, so the biggest overall threat is essentially that Montana, which is why I am focusing on the Montana. I'm also trying to do what I can to distract the Montana, and, or even just try to take the Montana out, while waiting for some of my better damage sources to replenish also, like the Torpedo Bombers, specifically. And there goes the rounds for Montana. And there goes the friendly Salem. So, at this point, I am alone against... I'm alone. So this is where you really get to see some of the better traits of the Montana, the FDR actually shine. Because now, I actually get to perform attack runs without anybody else killing my targets. I get to perform maneuvers to try and, well, I can't exactly say maneuvers to try and evade, because guess what? Right here. Goodbye, Montana. 16,000 damage in one torpedo run with 7 out of 8 torpedoes hitting. I can be very happy with that kind of torpedo run. But now I'm also looking at, I've got to chase down the midway. That is on the exact opposite end of the map from me. I have one capture point. I am up on points, but I would like to try and end this match quickly. So, time to start attacking the midway. And you'll actually see me do some things that I make a habit of doing when I'm going after CVs. I will perform one attack run out of the squadron. I flub that one, I make the run too early, run out of engine boost, and I say, you know what, pull those back before the fighters lock in on me. Now, I know I'm going to win this match in 6 minutes, and I know that there's no way that the midway is going to get through to actually get successive attacks on me at all. It'll be lucky if it even gets one attack in on me in some cases. So, I just decided to try and cap and get more points in, try to end the match a little bit faster while I'm doing the attack runs because, I mean, I may as well do something. So, yeah. Focusing on the midway. And you'll notice, again, I've got this sped up quite substantially because, oh boy, these aircraft are slow as shit. Yeah. Ship did come under attack briefly, but midway mostly. And, I mean, I do take a little bit of damage, but, I mean, my patrol fighters, or defensive fighters, are doing pretty good damage. There were 8 torpedo hits on the enemy midway right there. So, nice chunk of damage out of her. Did score some flooding that lasted for a little bit, so a little bit more damage from the flooding there. And now, dive bombers come in, land, I think, yeah, 1 bomb hit that really doesn't do much of anything. But, again, still just a little bit of damage. Next up, rocket planes. Again, because waiting for some torpedo bombers to come back. And if I remember correctly, this run actually is pretty decent. Because I actually make sure my reticle is in the right location. And, yeah. But I'm also losing rocket attack planes very quickly here. They do successfully attack, 13,900 damage for a single run, and I pulled them back again. But unfortunately, not before the fighters had already locked onto them, and I lost that squadron. Final attack run, come in with torpedo bombers. Midway does not really have any reasonable torpedo damage protection. So this run, right here, is the final attack of the match. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 torpedoes smack in the side of that midway to kill it and win the match. Final damage, 199,203 damage. And this was first win of the day bonus, so 3,818 EXP, 739 free EXP. Credit income, 273,773 credits earned. 3 kills, an astounding 40 torpedo hits. I've never seen that, except I think when I was running my Hakuryu in the initial stages of the CV rework. Lots of aircraft shot down. I mean, I did enough work there that I definitely deserved the top of the board. The Salem also earned his place. In fact, he probably should have been higher than me because, again, he did pretty good for himself. But, I mean, I finished the match on my own. So, I'm definitely very happy to have top of the team there. 22,000 to the Burgones, full damage to the Midway, 81.6 to the Montana, 15.6 to the one from the one run I got on the enemy Henry, 9,800 from the rocket attack run I got on the Goliath. I mean, I did respectable damage here and there. Didn't take much potential damage because I tried to stay hidden from that Montana as much as I could. Who can blame me? And ultimately, the ship only took just shy of 10,000 points worth of damage. Did 50,000 damage to enemy aircraft between my AA and fighter aircraft. So very respectable run overall. And I think the biggest reason I came out on top in that match, however, is because it was the FDR. I wasn't in the Midway, I wasn't in the Hakuryu, so I had enough damage output from single attacks to actually be able to do respectable damage to the things that I needed to, without losing a lot of planes trying to just get there, let alone carry out the attacks. And I also only needed minimal aircraft in order to be able to perform the runs in the first place. Because, again, 2 aircraft, that's all I needed for 8 torpedoes. I mean, damn. Midway wishes she had that. So, I mean, it's definitely not a bad aircraft carrier when it comes to raw damage output. It's the fact that you have to wait 25 seconds between attack runs for that raw damage output. It's that you have to really struggle to get across the map in a reasonable time frame that you struggle with this aircraft carrier. Now, I do have the enemy FDR. I'm actually against an FDR in this match. And I drop aircraft there to intercept the rocket attack planes. And again, rocket attack planes, they're slow. They're not getting away from my fighters. I drop 7 planes out of that squadron before my fighter just gives up. I do try to get torpedo angles on some things, get away from AA here and there, because what I really want to do, because I started off with torpedo bombers, is go after battleships. So I'm trying to get a sense of where everything is, where my best targets are, but also to get out of the vast majority of all of this AA, so that I can perform decent attack runs without having to worry about losing plane after plane. I finally get around to the side of this Vladivostok, and here we go. And I go for the Vladivostok, one, because it's the slowest thing on the map apparently, and because I just feel like going for it. It's isolated, it's only one ship, but I do also pull my squadron back after the attack run because I'd already lost a good portion of that squadron. I didn't really want to lose much more. Over to rocket attack planes, try to do something about this Edinburgh, or at least smack it slightly. And you'll also notice one of the things that I'm trying to stay away from is that Ostradla. It's one of those newfangled pan-European DBs that will ruin any CB's day if it gets a little too close. So yeah, I'm trying to stay away from that. But I did want to kind of smack the Edinburgh just a little bit. I'm trying to line up, figure out what I'm attacking next while I have to spend 25 seconds of downtime. I will harp on that one. I will harp on that one a lot. 25 seconds for a CB is a lot of time, especially when you're dealing with AARs and slow aircraft. Finally decide, you know what, I'll smack this Massachusetts just a little bit. Line up the attack run, and nice, solid hit. That was basically as close to center mass as you can get. 18 solid penetrations also. So, very happy there. But now things are getting a little too close on this flank, so I decided, you know what, let me use torpedo bombers to see what I can do. In the Alsace, these dwarves. And that's partly because it's in the cap circle. It wants to keep circling around. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 torpedoes out of an 8 torpedo attack round. It is hurting, and I had it flooding. So it's going to continue to take damage. Unfortunately, I do not get the kill. Vladivostok. I'm looking at basically planning the same thing. But I'm too close. So I drop early, and it's just going to get finished off anyway before I even get anything on it. Yeah, Vladivostok sent to the friendly egg.
Victory is in sight.
I do check to make sure that everybody is at least aware of my torpedoes and trying to evade them before I move on, without trying to so that I don't have to really warn anybody. I mean, they see those torpedoes and they're slow. They should be able to avoid them easily. And nobody gets hit by them, so nobody's lucky instead. Now it's time to just try to do what I can for the center of Massachusetts. Again, torpedoes out, torpedo drops, looking good. And 6, 7, full set, 8 torpedoes, 17, a little over 17,000 damage. So, oh yeah, nice run. Now, I'm also looking at this point and thinking, should I move my CV? I probably should, but I really don't think about it quickly enough, and I don't get it moving early enough to really cut any of the distance to the enemy FDR. I think about it, but I really don't. Rockets out, and that's going to be another nice center mass hit. No fires, only 4,800 damage. But there are eyes on the enemy FDR. So let's see what I can do. And you can see me thinking about going after the mass. Going back after the mass. But I ultimately decide, you know what?
Our victory is in sight.
I'm going to do better damage against the FDR. I've got a better shot at getting close to it. I've got a better shot at doing anything to it. Mass just got finished off by friendlies anyway, so I probably wouldn't have been able to carry out that attack run. So let's just do what I can while I can to the enemy FDR. And that attack sucked. 5,000 damage only, and a lot of that was kind of below the belt, so there was not a whole lot there. And unfortunately, because it's got like the entire remainder of my team shooting at it, I don't even get halfway across the map to it. So again, slow aircraft, and the fact that I didn't work on my positioning better after the locals were done just kind of bit me in the ass there. 87,139 damage done, though. I mean, that's respectable for that quick of a match. I guarantee I would not have gotten that in any other CV for this match. So, I mean, I can at least be happy that the FDR does do respectable damage in a relatively short amount of time, even if the attack itself takes a lot of time to set up, especially intervening attacks. I think if I had been in the midway, I probably would have been bottom of that team. No doubts about it. I just would not have, I would have had faster planes, I would have been able to get there faster, but the raw damage output would not have been there. So, yeah. That's my viewpoint on it, and that's what I'm sticking with. That for everything that I attacked, I mean, I did one, maybe 2 attack runs on that Vladivostok, one that actually did damage, and I did 12,000 damage to it. I mean, I did respectable damage on what I attacked, so I'm not going to complain about that much at all. The only thing I have to complain about is the slow speed of the aircraft and that extended just attack timer. And again, to a point though, I can understand why that is the way it is. It is to balance out the fact that this aircraft carrier does have such potential to put out damage in a short period of time, That the only way that they can balance it out is to make the aircraft slow as hell and make them resupply slower, make them have to suffer a long cooldown between attacks. Granted, I think that could be a little bit slow, a little bit shorter on the attack timer. I think 20 seconds would be more than respectable. It would still force players out to the fringes a little bit to get out of AA, but I think 25 seconds is a little egregious. You definitely suffer for it. That's my viewpoint. But the flip side is you do also have exceedingly survivable aircraft. I mean, comparing just at the health overall, I mean, she has the most survivable aircraft at tier. End of story. I mean, even at best, I think she has like 600, at the least, she has like 600 more hit points per aircraft than the nearest competitor on the Midway. So, yeah, I mean, she's definitely no slouch when it comes to aircraft survivability as long as you play her right. You can spend time in AA bubbles, you don't have to worry about losing too many aircraft as long as you don't get intercepted by fighters or just end up against something that has, like, God tier AA. But anyway, on that note, I suppose I should start looking at letting everybody go. That is the FDR at Tier 10, Premium Tier 10 U.S. aircraft carrier for 30,000 steel. Steep amount for a, what I'm going to say is a respectable ship under the right circumstances. And I'm sure PvP players will love her for some of the same reasons here, and just the simple fact that she can smack without many ways to do anything to dissuade her. Overall, again, not a bad ship. And it is a lengthy video. Again, I apologize for that too, in order to get to this point to say that. She is good, and I wanted to showcase her properly with a couple of decent matches. And with the new skill points also. So, anyway, on that note, I shall go ahead, let everybody go. I hope you all enjoyed the video. I hope you all found it informative regarding this monster of an aircraft carrier. And I hope to catch you all again next time. Have a good one, folks. Stay safe out there, stay healthy, and I wish you all happy hunting.